Initiating moisture protocol.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we'll be analyzing the moisture content found within the new God of War game. This game has been hyped beyond all games in 2018 and people are too afraid to say anything negative about it, but not the brave scientists at Moist Meter headquarters. But god damn it, there's not a lot of negative things about this game. This game is fucking phenomenal. It really does deserve most of the praise it's getting. However, I'm going to get my biggest complaint about this game out of the way right now. I fucking hate its title. I hate this recent trend where you put a new entry in the series with the same name as the first entry in the series. It's fucking lazy, it's silly, and I understand the pretentious answer from the people that love the smell of their own farts. Oh, well, it's a reinvented Kratos. He's not the same man as we saw in the previous God of War games, thus it should have a completely different title as a soft reboot. It's fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid. Call it God of War 4, call it God of War Norse, call it God of War Hard Dick No Condom. I don't really care, but don't call it the same name as the first game in the series. It's just dumb. It's very flat out stupid and silly. It'd be like if I had a son and I named him Charlie, but it wasn't Charlie Jr. You could not call him Charlie Jr. because that's not his name. It's just Charlie. So I would be Charlie 1994, and he'd be Charlie whatever year he'd be born in. It's dumb. It's really fucking dumb no matter how you look at it. But this game is fucking amazing. So it revolves around Kratos and his son Atreus. Atreus is just his nickname. His real name is Boy. And they go on a really emotional adventure. And from that adventure, it starts off pretty innocent where their mother dies and they just want to scatter the ashes. But from that, it evolves into this really big and expanding plot that is just so captivating and super fun. And I just absolutely love the story here. It's delivered so well, and the relationship between father and boy is constantly evolving, and you start to really feel for both characters. And it's just really, really amazingly well written and well delivered. The voice acting is top notch as well, especially from Christopher Judge, whose voice now haunts my dreams. That man can make any man feel lesser just by his voice. Just listening to that booming and sultry voice deliver really well written lines just plucks hair off of your nutsack because you don't deserve them because you don't sound like Christopher Judge. So it's just really well done across the board, but Christopher Judge's performance really stood out to me. Now my favorite thing about this game is definitely the visuals. The visuals are just breathtaking. The world that's built here is massive, and it's incredible to just explore and have fun in. And it's very, very big, full of fucking content too. Side quests if you want to deviate from the main story path. And I would recommend doing that because they're very interesting side quests. It's not just go jerk off 6 cows in a field a mile away and come back to me. It's, hey, we got a lot of shit to do here. I don't want to spoil anything, even the slightest. But it's really well done. It's not a big world that's devoid of content. And even the traveling from location to location is fun. Because Boy starts talking about the world and expanding the lore and asking Kratos questions, and which keeps evolving their relationship. It's just really great all around. I was amazed that it wasn't just tedious going from spot to spot, because I was really interested in the stories that were being told on the boat. And the stories on the boat were actually some of the best in the game, in my opinion. And maybe that's just because I'm interested in mythology and shit, but it wasn't really boring stuff at all. It wasn't like, hey Kratos, did you hear about, the guy that didn't like green eggs and ham? These stories were like some high octane and really interesting shit. And it also kind of foreshadowed what we might see in other God of War entries, because this is going to be more than just one game. And that was fun, because I feel like paying attention to those stories from Boy on the boat might even come in handy. Another thing that almost made me come in my handy is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is sparingly used, but when it is, it really steals the show and makes a cinematic scene amazing. It really bumps it up to the next level. When I say it's sparingly used, it's not like it's a game devoid of music or score or anything. It's just oftentimes it's not the focal point. It fades into the background during combat or during a exposition moment. But when it is front and center, holy shit, does it really capture you and bring you into the moment. And then that brings us to the combat, which to my surprise was really deep and fun. That was my biggest concern with this game when I was watching the reviews and reading about it. It's just the combat looked very dull and slow. But to my surprise, it's far from that. It's actually very deep. The comboing is very fun and fulfilling. And there's a lot of wiggle room here to play around with your own unique play styles, which I didn't expect at all. Now that being said, you don't really need to. You can kind of get through every enemy in this game using just the most basic of combos and special abilities, your runic abilities. you don't really need to think outside of the box to beat the enemies. They don't really challenge you to approach things differently. But that might just be from playing on the normal difficulty or hard difficulty. I didn't experience any type of unique ways to approach the combat on either of those difficulties, but maybe if you go a bit higher, you will need to think a bit harder in what you do. But regardless, even if you don't need to, it's still fun to use all of the skills and abilities at your disposal because it's fulfilling, and it does help a lot to defeat the enemies faster, but you don't really need to, which is fine. That's not really a complaint. But what is a complaint is the enemy design. I think the enemy design, for the most part, is very uninspired. It's just some generic-looking zombies and trolls and ogres for the most part. There are some unique enemies here, though. There's some werewolf enemies as well as some other ones on some side quests that are really well designed, but the main chunk of the enemies you fight aren't going to be all that visually stunning or unique. They look like something you'd find in every other hack-and-slash game ever made, which is kind of disappointing. But that's not really a huge negative because it's still super fun to beat the shit and piss out of these enemies. Another thing that kind of caught me off guard was how fun it was to be collecting gear and looking for gear and trying to get your stats where you want them to be. That actually made quite a bit of difference in the combat and the gameplay, and I didn't expect that. I thought it'd all basically just be aesthetics, but it really did influence the way that your character played out. And having boys shoot arrows when you want them to, and summon runic summons to attack as well. There was a lot of strategy behind it, and there was a lot of planning that went into getting the gear and the stats where you wanted them to be to suit your playstyle. One other complaint that I have, though, is a lot of the puzzle sections and a lot of the slower bits where you were running from point A to point B, not traveling by boat, really dragged on. There was a lot of sections in this game that I felt could have been shortened in order to help with the pacing, because sometimes the pacing just comes to a screeching halt and you get a little bored with solving the same fucking puzzle for the upteenth time, and that's kind of an issue I have here. Now, it's not a huge issue. It doesn't detract from my overall enjoyment of the game. It's just the pacing is kind of wonky when it hits that kind of shit. Now it's time to plug this shit into the 100% gluten-free and vegan moisture content analyzing meter. We're giving this an 85%. The game is absolutely fucking fantastic, no matter how you look at it. A world that can absolutely draw you in, a lot of lore should you choose to want to learn all of it, a ton of content and challenge modes and shit if you want to keep playing the game after the credits roll. I think there's a lot of replayability here, so after one playthrough you'll probably want to go explore and learn everything else there is. And it's just a very great game overall, with a few flaws, but I do think the majority of people, including God of War fans, are going to really like this game. But one other thing I'd like to mention is after the first boss battle, nothing really reaches that level of holy shit again. It really kind of loses that steam after the first boss battle. All of the other cinematics and boss battles can't even come close to the first encounter. It is such an amazing boss battle and such an amazing and long fucking fun fight that nothing else in the game was able to match that, which is a shame, but it doesn't mean all the other shit and all the other boss battles weren't fun. They just were not to the same level as the first one. I'd just like to make that very clear, because god damn it, I really fell in love after that first fucking boss battle and the scenes that followed, and it's really a shame that the rest couldn't get up to that level again, but it was fucking great from start to finish, and I think most people will really like this game. That's it. See ya.